Hey folks, you know, I don't know if any wrestling fan knows about this now. We probably do, and I'm sure Deluxe Man and a few others, and we'll talk about this in videos. But 20 years ago today, as a matter of fact, at 7 o'clock tonight, around the 7 o'clock hour, almost 8 o'clock at night, Pacific time, 20 years ago, the unthinkable happened. 20 years ago, the iconic Hulk Hogan turned his back on the fans and joined Scott Hall and Kevin Nash to form the nWo. Now, this was something that was in the works for quite some time, apparently, because when Scott Hall made his debut on Nitro, he didn't specifically say his name. All he said was, "You know who I am." This was followed up by a challenge for a match. Then, of course, the following week, you had Kevin Nash show up, but again, no names were spoken. You only assumed it was Diesel. This, of course, led to some behind-the-scenes legal action by WWE because of what Scott Hall said. Thus, eventually, they had to be referred to as Hall and Nash. We wouldn't get the Kevin or Scott part until maybe after Bash at the Beach. But the reason July 7th is so significant, with Hulk Hogan turning his back on the fans, is because no one at that time ever thought it would happen. You're looking at that time about 12 years worth of good guyness. 12 years of red and yellow, 12 years of saying your prayers, taking your vitamins, believing in the three commandments, or demandments, or the 10 demandments, whatever. You know, all that jazz. And then this happened. The reason for it was because basically about, I'd say at the time, I'd say 10 months prior, Nitro had launched. And Nitro was kind of trading ratings wars with WWE, but still wasn't beating them at times, even if they gave away the results. So they had to do something. One of the strategies was to not only be live, but according to Eric Bischoff, make things more real. And that's where the whole nWo concept came into play. Because even before the internet really took off and became what it is, no one thought Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were released by WWE or had left WWE when their contracts expired. They thought they were still part of it. But Great American Bash, they had to debunk that. Now, of course, for weeks no one knew exactly who the third man was going to be. They had already been named. The opponents had already been named. So in Sting, Lex Luger, and Randy Savage. But nobody knew exactly who the third man for the Outsiders, which they became known as, was going to be. That is until Bash at the Beach. Now, original plans had called for Sting to do it, but Eric Bischoff wanted Hogan. Hogan at first didn't want to do it, but I think finally saw the realization that, hey, this is a money train. It's going to take off without me, and it's either going to crash and burn if it just, and well, it might. Basically, Hogan realized that this money train might just crash and burn without him on board, in which I think he realized that if he joins, it makes a more significant impact and helps WCW rise above WWE and start winning the ratings war. Start winning Monday nights and the ratings war. So by that standard, Hogan realized, hey, if I don't do this, it's not going to work. And when he did it, it worked because no one saw that coming. And every week, every month, every night, it was unpredictability. You never know who was going to jump from WCW to the nWo. You never knew who was going to debut to be part of the nWo. You never knew. I mean, you didn't think that the Giant, Big Show now in WWE, was going to join the nWo after losing the world title to Hogan at Hog Wild. You wouldn't have expected that, but it happened. You didn't expect Sean Waltman, X-Pac, or 123 Kid as he was known at the time, to show up in WCW, get redubbed Six or Six Pac, and go from there. But it happened. You didn't expect Ted DiBiase to show up there and be part of the NWO, but it happened. Brian Adams, a little after he did his Nation of Domination and Disciples of Apocalypse deal, you didn't think he was going to show up and be part of the NWO, but it happened. You didn't think Bret Hart was going to associate later on, part of the Silver Edition of NWO, be part of it, but it happened. The point is, a lot of things happened that you didn't think would. And I think what Hogan had said prior as well in various interviews is it didn't matter who you were, whether you were upper mid-card, or even lower mid-card. If you were donned with an NWO t-shirt, you became a star overnight. Take back Marcus Bagwell, for example. No one ever, he was a decent star, several times tag team champion, but no one thought he was going to go beyond maybe lower to mid-card status, but yet when he became NWO, he went all the way to upper mid-card to semi-main event, low main event status. And he's kept that Buff Bagwell persona ever since, because that's the breakout gimmick he needed. You take a look at the Steiner brothers. You didn't think when the Steiners came back that they were going to be part of the NWO. Scott Steiner was going to be NWO, but guess what? He ended up becoming NWO. And now some might say that later on, when Scott developed his more vicious attitude, more in-your-face, threatening to hurt kind of people attitude, that it was pretty much a given. But no one but still people were willing to give it the benefit of the doubt that it wouldn't happen, but it did. No one expected the NWO to get watered down the way it did, split into two factions, and then because of that, you ended up having guys like Sting and Luger actually join the NWO. And this is the NWO Red and Black Wolfpack. And this is like, not even half a year after Sting had beaten Hogan at Starrcade. And speaking of Sting, you didn't expect him to go from the surfer dude kind of thing to the Crow gimmick or anything like that. But just like with Taker, Sting said it was about evolving along with the business, and that's what he did. And that's what the NWO did. It helped evolve the business. It helped revolutionize what it was to be sports entertainment, pro wrestling, storylines. A lot of people contribute the NWO for not only DX's, Generation X's existence, but they also contributed for the Attitude existence happening, because WWE realized, okay, if they're going to do that, take the gloves off and show that nothing's off limits, we're going to do the same thing. And that's what they did. Some might say that the reason Vince McMahon became the Mr. McMahon character was because of Eric Bischoff revealing on screen that, yeah, he was the WCW president, but now he's also part of the NWO. He was the reason this was happening. So, it's just a whole, what happened 20 years ago on this date still felt to this day the impact it feels, because anytime you have the NWO show up, whether it's just Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and X-Pac, whether it's Hogan, Hall, and Nash, or just Hall and Nash. Sorry, my finger hit the mic there. They want to see something like that again. They want to see something like that. That is why they gravitate so much to the Bullet Club and to the spin-offs like the Club and the Elite and any other group that's out there. Do you realize that the Bullet Club, in a sense, through various spin-offs, including itself in Japan, is in like 4 different promotions right now? 4 or 5 different promotions. You have your main Bullet Club promotion in Japan, and you have all these spin-offs like the Club and WWE. You have Finn Balor that we don't know what he's going to do when he shows up part in NXT. You have you have certain parts of the Bullet Club and Ring of Honor, certain clubs in AAA. I think even in England. It's like, who would have thought this, right? But yet there it is. And again, that's why they gravitate to the Bullet Club, because it reminds them of the NWO. It reminds them of a rebellious group that's not going to get held down, that's going to do what they want, when they want. So, and screw the system, right? So that shows you the impact, because even Kevin Nash passed the baton, if you will, over to the Bullet Club doing a GFW event. Again, no one would have thought this was going to. I mean, again, this is the kind of impact that's still felt to this day. Because even when someone joins the Bullet Club, like when Adam Cole joined the Bullet Club in Ring of Honor, no one saw that coming, but it happened. It's like if John Cena joins the club down the line, which I don't think would happen, it would be a shocker. Which is why a lot of people felt that Roman Reigns being the one that Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows should align with would help the WWE out in a huge way, because even despite the fact, because they don't like the guy already, and if you want to get a tag team that fans want to get behind over as heels, that's how you do it. So again, just 20 years later, it shows you that impact that moment in time at Bash at the Beach in July 7th of this year, of 1996, I should say, had. Will we ever? So again, but now the question is, will we ever have another event like that? Will we ever have another moment like that? You know, TNA knows how significant that moment was. They tried to recreate it several years ago when Bischoff and Hogan were under the helm with the immortal thing, and having Jeff Hardy be the guy that turned his back on the crowd, how to be the Hollywood Hogan, if you will. But that blew up in their faces. You know, you even tried to have them redo it with the band and Hall, Nash, and X-Pac, and that blew up in their faces. So again, you know, even TNA, despite the good and bad ideas that they've had, even they realize the significance and importance of that moment. But again, the question is, will we have another moment like that? Who knows? But again, it just shows you that 20 years later, the birth of the NWO is still felt to this day. So let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. The Lex Man, I'd like to hear what you have to say. Rob the Wonderful. Anybody out there, let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to y'all later.